So the engine and gearbox are finally together, and if you've been seeing my Facebook, I'm very grateful to my friend Johnny for the help. There's no easy way to do this, but basically even the manual doesn't describe much. It tells you how to take the transmission off, doesn't tell you how to get it back on. So what we did is, just if it helps anyone, if you can imagine, spin the engine around. From the photos, I'll put a photo in the video. The gearbox was in this corner on some bricks. We tried to get it level, maybe 3 bricks high. Then we brought the engine in at an angle, pretty much the way it is now, and pushed forward and wiggled. At the same time, we had to have a hydraulic jack underneath the output shaft, which raised it up. And at the same time, we tried to wiggle it in and up and down. And basically we could get close, but we could never get it to go from this angle to this angle parallel with the block line. So absolute nightmare. I spent about 10 hours on it myself, gave up, and then thankfully a lot of friends online offered help, and Johnny turned up the next morning. 3 hours later it was connected, and it was one of those magical moments where you're doing everything you can. We were turning the crank pulley, wiggling it, jacking it up. Nothing seemed to work, and just in a split second it slid into place, popped. We held it there and managed to get a couple of bolts in on the bell housing. So yeah, not a job I ever want to do again on one of these engines. It's brutal, so I'm going back to Subarus after this. So what I've also done is put the cover on to protect the flywheel from dirt, because this is obviously a sump. The exhaust is going to get pretty mucky down there. Put a new bolt in to brace the turbocharger onto the block. At the moment, wiring looms on, alternator, as you've seen from the previous videos, the belts. Just checking all these lines are pretty secure going round. The gearbox, again, it's empty. You can't put the oil in until you get it in the car. So engine, gearbox, everything is empty, no fluids. Connected up the speed sensor in the back of the gearbox. A couple of other things, to be honest, can't remember where they go. They probably connect up once the engine's in, water trees and sensors and things like this. But I've got a lot of pictures on my laptop, so basically now I want to kind of final cleaning around the seals. I've got a new seal for that. And then around the back of the block, I hope you can see here with the lighting, I've got the braces back on. I had to take those off to give some access to try and wiggle this whole gearbox in. And you can see now the coloured boost control on the bottom of the block, which, if you imagine, this is now tucked away against your firewall, so you're never getting your hands up there. The new idle control solenoid on the power steering, which is controlled by those 2 black lines that go up to the manifold. Your power steering lines you'll connect when they're in the car. It's all pretty self-explanatory around the front. Yeah, I mean, most of this now, I've had a final check this morning, and there's nothing really left that I can do except keep the engine hanging here, put the wiring loom on it, and get ready to fit it in the car. But before I do that, I have to go and fix, I think it's a trailing arm link on the driver's side, and also a boot, not a CV boot, but a protective boot on one of the knuckles. So we'll do those. Those are a couple of boring jobs, but again, you need an angled grinder for it, so it's pretty time consuming. I think we've got the parts over here. As you can see, garage is chaos, intercooler and some hoses to go on when it's in the car. And then we've got some OEM, this is the part, boot, and also the arm as well. So this screws onto the not the shaft, but the trailing arm, and this is all new. And you grease in there. The grease on mine has split, and I'm struggling to get this out of the knuckle, so I'll probably have to cut it and push it out with a pin. There's the gaskets I haven't used yet, and that's about it. Yeah, so it's looking good. Turbo's ready to go in, and here's just a quick snapshot of the wheels that are planned to go on the car, all the way from Japan. And thank you to JDM Addict, so you can find him on Facebook and Instagram. These are genuine Yokohama Super Advans, and they're a rare size. They're 5x100, 17 inch, which is getting pretty impossible to find. and they're in pretty good condition too. I mean, for 20-odd-year-old wheels, I mean, a bit of road rash on them, but they're all in similar condition. So before I get tires, I'll send them in to the body shop, to the restoration guy I know, and get these all completely restored. I'm thinking of it, making these parts of the spokes black and keeping the silver lip, but we'll see how it goes. Anyway, that's the wheel choice. I know it's Marmite, you love it or hate it. I love them, so it's my car and I get to pick, so that's the way it goes. The rest of it, yeah, just as you can see, exhaust jacks, transmission jack, bottle jacks, pretty much, yeah, it's organized chaos at the moment, but finally there's not much left on the floor, which is the main thing. And there's the old cylinder head in the corner, which I plan to overhaul and then sell and get some money back on that. And on the bench, here's all the drive shafts, brakes, all the heavy stuff, engine braces which go underneath to hold the transmission and engine to the chassis. We've got the plastic undersheeting, and we've also got the inlet, air inlet, and the MAF. So if you upgraded your ECU, there's a couple of tricks you can do to actually eliminate the MAF. You can get like a control box and map it out, but for now, as long as it works, we're going to keep it, keep the car as stock as we can, maybe try and get an original airbox as well, but they're pretty hard to find these days, so I'll have to stick with the mushroom intake for now. Aside from that, yeah, that's it, and that's the horrible old original wheels that came with the car. So that's about it for now. So what I'll do another video, or I'll update it after this, and we'll get working on the transmission and the chassis now and get everything ready to get the car, or get the engine into the car, which is the exciting bit. Okay, so we're actually lying on our back underneath the engine bay. So here you can see power steering, all the various cables up to the bonnet, and looking back there's the shaft tunnel and shaft line. So this morning I've managed to find the correct bits. Sorry, I'm going to do this one-handed. It's off the power steering, and it's just trying to loosen this screw, and it's the boot has gone here, so I want to replace that with a nice shiny new OEM Toyota one. And we also have, there's the knuckle that we need to try and hammer out, or cut and hammer out, or whatever, but make it work, because all of this is greasy. There's a lovely wee shot of the RX-7 in the background. So there we go. So yeah, we're going to get these off. There's nothing exciting to show. It's just slackening these off, sliding the boot off the shaft line, which is disconnected, if the camera can show you around there. That'll slide off, and then we'll take the angle grinder to this one. So I'll get back to you once more is complete. Okay, so there's the power steering rack. You come out to get this boot off. What I've done, I've clamped the shaft, because that whole shaft spins on this ball joint. So put a clamp wedged against the wheel arch, and I've cleaned all these threads, and it's easily to back this nut off. So I think we're getting there. Put some grease, put the new boot on, tighten it up, job done on that one, and then we can get around to the hard part of trying to extract this. As you can see, maybe better from this side. There we go. It's pretty filthy, and it's seized there. So again, more lubrication, big hammer, bad limeage, and that's it, nothing special. Okay, so here we are at the back of the engine, the output shaft, which runs along the car's center line. So this is your output to your rear diff and your four-wheel drive at the rear. So I've actually just got this old crusty seal out, if I can find it. It was pretty bad condition and leaking. We've got a nice new one, fresh one to press in. So we'll get the shaft, the bore cleaned up, put the seal in, and that's the engine ready to go in, finally. Okay, here's a quick after shot. What I did was, got this on, and just tapped around to push it in parallel, and then a final couple of taps going around like this, just to make sure it's flush around the lip. You don't want to push it right in, because actually, down here and up here there's a couple of oil reliefs that run back, so it's actually meant to catch the oil around the lip, flows down, and on the inside surface it passes back in so that the oil doesn't flow out. So you've got your sealing here and also your sealing here, and hidden away behind the back of the seal is a bit of an air gap, and that lets the fluid flow back in through that hole. So yeah, that's, I think, final checks. I'm I just need to actually now shuffle some cars about, so I'll do the prep work for that, final checks on the engine, have a bit of a tidy up, and then we're ready to finally put the engine in. That's it, ready to go. I did try off camera to fit the intercooler, but with the way it's hanging and the chains, it's better to leave it. And also it means I can disconnect the fuel relay and for the fuel pump, and then take out the spark plugs and crank it on the starter just to build up oil pressure before we actually put it on fuel and set the timing. So that's a safe way. It's a really nice way of getting the engine spinning without load and building up oil pressure. Make sure everything's good, everything's lubricated, you've got an oil film on your bearings. I did pre-lube them when I checked and inspected the bottom end, but why not get some oil through everything? So that's the plan. So for now, I'll tidy up the bomb site, and the next video we'll try and do separately of actually getting the engine back in the car. So today's going to be an exciting one. Hopefully you can see here. I've pushed the engine into position, and this is the first time I'm actually going to unlock the car and start climbing around it since I bought it and yanked the engine out. So feeling confident, sort of. But yeah, I'll give you a quick walkthrough. Here's the engine on the stand. I have to try and figure out how on earth I'm going to get that in the car. It was easier before, pulling it out. I'm sure it's not going to be easy going in, but yeah, we'll try and put it on a trolley or something and slide it under. So that's the plan. Fingers crossed. Okay, so after the time lapse, here's a bit of an update. At the moment, I'm trying to decide the best way to do this because I've got the engine roughly where it needs to be on 2 trolleys, and it's just cleared the subframe under here. Turbo's a bit tight, but it'll work. The main thing now is I'm trying to pull the wiring loom, which is this bit. This is the bulkhead connection, and all of this runs into the car through this gap. So I need to fiddle with it and get as much of the wiring loom as I can into the hole, which drops down into the footwell, and at the same time be careful with the fuse boxes, all of this bit of the wiring that goes in the engine bay. I'm trying to keep it separate near the headlight, and depending on the clearance, I really can't remember if it's better to secure the hoist again to these engine mounts here, and take the weight of the chassis, and then I can pull the jacks out from underneath the jack stands and then lower the car onto the engine. I would actually prefer to lift the engine up in, and then you can control it better, but at the moment I don't have much choice. I think it's a little tight. I'll have to figure that out. For now, off camera, I'll get the wiring loom in, and then we'll go to the next scene. Okay folks, so engine is in after that last sort of time lapse. As you can see, you can rock it because it's actually only held on by the cross member engine mount there and down there. So now what we've got to do today is the remaining flexible hoses. I've got a load of new ones to go in. I've also got my the boost control, the air lines, everything that needs connected up here. So what I did before, because it's months ago now that I actually got to work on this car, when I pulled it apart, was I have to figure out where these go. Excuse me. So what I did was I took pictures every step of the way. So basically I pointed my finger at each end of the hose so I can go through my MacBook slowly, one by one, connect them all up. So that's today's job. After that, once everything's in, it'll be going under the car and you've got the big cross members. So there's one forward to aft and one across sideways, and those two will actually bolt the rest of it to the chassis. So gearbox, everything, and that's it. And then exhaust goes on, and probably drive shafts like the side and rear, and that's it. Yeah, so let's see what progress we make today. Okay, so just another update. Now we're starting to get the coolant hoses all plumbed in for the heater matrix control. Got a lot of this wiring loom all connected up. It's incredibly tight because it only fits one way, and there's a bracket down here and an earth cable that secures this whole loom, and you have to do that because to connect up one of these water temp sensors, it's so tight, there's not enough free space on the loom to really wiggle this, so you have to get it in place correctly. Other thing, all the wiring's been tucked down into the footwell. I just have to put this fuel hose on. We've got all the vacuum hoses connected, clutch down there, and also it's hard to see, maybe from a different angle. Just there, that's your shifter cables. So they were easier from underneath the car. I think looking up, there's one of them there. And basically it's the bushing. You pop it on, there's a bar. It's like a donut. You set the donut, the bushing, on top of the pin, which is on that fork, going sideways. And then you put a circular plate on top and a pin, and that secures it in place. So there's two of those. They're pretty nasty trying to get on from underneath. The clutch hydraulics are down somewhere here and poked away in here. So basically this passenger side corner for Japanese cars, not American, for the Japanese cars, you will hurt your back straining because everything is quite deep down. So start down there first, start with the gear linkage. You've also got your speedo electric sensor for the dashboard and ECU, and plug that in. As you work your way up, you've got the clutch on the firewall, the flexi hose. We've also got some sensors here. Then you want to start tackling. There's a couple of water hoses, coolant hoses there that come around to here. Everything really is connected along this water tree. All the coolant hoses, they run up to the firewall. So once you've got that, I mean, that's the back of it broken. The rest of it is all manifold vacuum lines. Quite easy because most of them I was able to leave in the car. For example, here, a lot of this stuff was all on and marked, and I didn't have to actually disturb it, which was a bonus. So yeah, I think now, final prep around here, just double check everything, get the fuel connected. I'll check on the other side, earthing straps, and then we'll look at getting the radiator in, and probably plumbing in the new hose to the radiator, the lower hose down there. Once that's in, go underneath again, drive shafts, cross members, supports, and that's it. Okay, so that is the engine plumbed up and wired up, I hope. So basically, the most headache was down in there. Everything, to be honest, especially your distributor, your HT King lead. That's a nightmare because you can damage it pulling it out, and it's so difficult to find a replacement. All the water hoses, throttle body, injectors, wiring, MAF. I mean, I can't even remember when I took this off. This felt loose. It should clip in, but it doesn't, and I don't want to force it, so it's tight enough there. We'll see. I mean, fingers crossed. Intercooler was a bit of a pig to get on, and I've got the cover on, but you just really have to slide these hoses down because at the top on the throttle body, it's a very, very tight fit. The rest of it, new radiator hoses in, upper and lower, looking shiny new. I think that's it. Yeah, just going through here, all the ECU wirings connected, your fault code diagnostics. The rest of this, I'll bolt this onto the bulkhead. I've actually kept the screws in there, so get that bolted down. One thing I couldn't fit right now, and there's no need to right now, is the AC, the high pressure hose. There was a bit of clearance issues with the downpipe. I wanted to see how it fitted, how everything else mechanically fitted, until I decided to go for this. So I've cable tied it up out of the way. It's meant to tuck in this gap and connect to the compressor in there. It is a tight space, but to be honest, it's Northern Ireland, it's freezing, you don't need AC, thankfully. I will get round to it, but just not right now. The main aim is to get the car running. Brace is on, it's all clear down there, no rags or anything left. Had to check all the vacuum hoses up around here. Everything's connected, power steering lines, and also here under the tank. Need to fill that as part of the fluids. And yeah, I'm kind of pinching myself because that is the engine actually fitted, plumbed in, wired in, everything. It's actually ready to fill with fluids and crank over. The only thing remaining now is the drive shafts. So 2 front drive shafts on the front wheels and the power takeoff out of the transfer box going rear. So I'll do those separately, but for now I think I'm going to call it a day, have a cup of coffee and feel good about myself. So that's it, GT4 engine complete.